All right, let's get cooking. Welcome to the latest edition of Chin Check Sports Radio. I'm your host, JD. I want to thank you all for taking the time out to listen to our program. And as always, we accept any suggestions, comments, feedback, and criticism to improve the overall quality of our program, which ultimately improves your listening experience. Now, on this episode, I wanted to deviate a little bit from what we usually talk about, our normal topics, and talk about the controversy that has stirred recently from famous father and son, Lavar and Lonzo Ball, in his recent comments when he referred to his son as damaged goods. There was a video from their Facebook channel or Facebook live channel that Lavar Ball and his son was involved in an argument / dispute over the direction of their company, Big Baller Brand. And comments were made. I think the mainstream media jumped on those comments because, again, they like to jump on anything that Lavar Ball does. I'm not going to criticize a man who is heavily involved in his children's life. He has clearly raised his kids the right way. He has tried to prepare them for this harsh world that we live in. So I never had a problem with Lavar Ball and how he conducted a business on behalf of his sons. Now, for those of you who don't know, Lavar Ball came to bed maybe about 4 or 5 years ago when his sons, well, the oldest son was playing college basketball at UCLA, and he started making outrageous claims that he can beat the great Michael Jordan in a one-on-one basketball game, and his son will be better than Steph Curry fresh out of college. And of course, the mainstream media thought the guy was a quack, and he decided to go his own route and create a big baller brand versus doing what normal athletes do and going to big corporations like Nike and Reebok and signing for the money. Yes, but you kind of want your own thing. So Lavar, I always felt, had a vision for him and his children, and I felt that he can do the best he can. Now, some of the criticisms that I feel that Lavar has gotten has been rather, I'm going to say it's been rather incorrect and, quite frankly, unfair and really unwarranted. Now, Lavar Ball, from all appearances, is a loving father. He wants the best for his children, and I don't see anything wrong with that. In fact, that's normal of most fathers, especially when the sons are involved in athletics. You want to push your son to be great. You want to make your son who he is, and you want the best for your son. So I never had a problem with that. In fact, I disagree with the mainstream media of their coverage of Lavar Ball. Now, Lavar Ball has been on Fox Sports News on the famous show Undisputed. He's been on ESPN First Take, and the reason why he's on those shows, and despite all his bloviating, he is a ratings draw. He does bring ratings. So the simple fact that ESPN, well, up until the recent comments with Molly Quirm that I think, quite frankly, were harmless at best, besides those recent comments and going on the show Undisputed, this man was a ratings draw. He brought people when people knew he was coming on the show, or him and the children were going on the show. They obviously, folks tuned in, including myself, because they wanted to see and hear what he had to say, however outlandish they might be. But I think it really hit the fan in the controversy with Lavar Ball when he was on the Colin Cowherd show, and Christina Leahy was making comments saying that the Big Baller Brand should appeal to women, and Lavar Ball was very respectful. He did not face her. He didn't want to even look at her, and told her to stay in her own lane. Then she started going really down the beaten path, making comments that his kids were afraid of him, and I had issues with that. And the white media tried to spin it like, he threatened her, and she immediately went into white woman victim mode, which we know that's commonplace with the black man in America. They say what they want to say to you. Then when you respond and get upset, all of a sudden you go into white female victim mode, and now all of a sudden, you're the big angry black man. So I had an issue with that, or i.e. what Charlamagne the God said, she weaponized her whiteness. And Lavar Ball, I even felt in that interview, showed a lot of restraint and control for a woman that is essentially saying that he is abusing his children. And I had a real issue with that, because you're painting a picture to the mainstream media that this man is abusing his children to the point where his children are afraid to talk to him, and that's clearly not the case. Yes, he's overbearing, but you don't get that vibe of you don't get the vibe of somebody who's being abusive or a tyrant to his children. So I took great offense to that. because you constantly hear in the black community the lack of fathers around, the father figure's not around, and every young man needs a father figure. Now you have a black man who is a heavy presence in his child's life and ultimately wants the best for his children. And yes, sometimes when a parent wants the best for their children, it can and will conflict with what the child thinks was best for them, especially when they're grown and they're adults. So I understand that. But the criticisms, or to paint the picture that this man is abusive towards his children, I think it's quite frankly disgusting, and I never ever bought really into that. So with Lavar Ball, the comments, when you go back and you look at the, I guess, a dispute with his son, was the issue of if they wanted to rename the Big Baller brand. Now, the Big Baller brand was created by Lavar Ball as well as the Junior Basketball Association. So clearly the guy loves basketball, clearly he loves marketing. So he created the Big Baller brand instead of going to a big corporation like Nike, was something for his children to have, a legacy for them to have, build a brand from the ground up. They released a shoe, the ZO2, that were priced, I believe, close to $500. Now, through sales and orders not getting there on time, clearly it was bad business on that part. The co-owner, Alan Foster, apparently filched around $2 million from Lonzo Ball. I don't know why they're not suing that bastard. I hope they are. So they had a disagreement on the show whether to rename the Big Baller brand, where they were going to relaunch it, should they relaunch the company under a different name. And I think that's where the strong disagreement began about renaming Big Baller brand. So Lonzo, it looks like it was another gentleman sitting there, and they were telling Lavar, well, we should rename the company. Lavar had an issue with it because he didn't want to rename the company. His argument was, why am I renaming a company when this is my idea, this is my brand, and this is for you guys? BBB, Three Ball Brothers, Lonzo, Jello, I think LiAngelo, and LaMelo. So his thing was, we're not naming the name because of a few hiccups here and there. Lonzo countered, well, we've had these issues because Foster stole the money. Apparently the shoes wasn't getting on time. So it was a host of issues regarding the company and why the company is going to have to relaunch itself. Lavar's argument was, well, why should I change the name based on perception or based on what people feel? So Lonzo countered his point, and that's when Lavar stated, well, if that's the case, then I should change your name to Alonzo, or from Alonzo to Alfonso, because they say you've been damaged goods for 2 years. And the funny thing is, while people are coming down on Lavar Ball for making that statement to his son, but that's in effect what the mainstream media has been saying. They have been saying that Lonzo Ball has been damaged goods, that Lonzo Ball, that he cannot stay healthy. So in my estimation, in my opinion, I think that was I guess Lamar going the extreme way to prove his point, or to try to make his point, to say, well, why am I going to rename a company based on what the outside world says and based on what people say? Because if that's the case, I should change your name because the same outside world is calling you damaged goods. So in my opinion, I don't think it was at a slight to his son to take a shot at him. I felt he used an extreme point to prove his point about not wanting to change Big Baller brand. So that's just my opinion on that. I think the guy means well. I think he does the best that he could, and I don't have an issue with that. I've always felt that he is positive. He is trying to do the right thing for his children. Maybe if footwear isn't his thing, because apparently there were some issues with the shoes, and Lonzo had to constantly change shoes during the basketball games, and some people feel in Lakerland that the quality of the shoe might have contributed to his health issues. So that'd be something that we'll never know, or we'll get some idea when now Lonzo's playing for the New Orleans Pelicans, so we'll get a better idea whether the shoes themselves were the issue or whatever reason with Lonzo's body breaking down. That'd be something that we'll see. But to criticize Lavar and make comments that him being the father of the year, I don't see what the man has done so bad. All his children are very respectful. They seem to be well-mannered, besides Jello with the one little hiccup in China when he was stealing, I guess, some sunglasses when the team was on tour in China. That's the only quote off the court issues that you've had, pulling his sons out of school. So again, fathers oftentimes want to do what's best for their children, and they might want to live vicariously through their children. That's anything different from baseball dads. That's nothing different from all these beauty pageant moms and dance troupe moms. There's nothing different from that. All it is that you have a black man on a large stage who is, quite frankly, who is not beholden to anybody, who wants to fight for his own money. He doesn't want to go to a corporation to make money. He wants to make his own money off of his brand that his kids are able to own for generations. So what it sounds like his ultimate plan was to build generational wealth. So I don't have an issue with that. If anything, I commend him for that, and I wish more people took the time to try to build their own generational wealth. So I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is with the mainstream, with the criticism, trying to call the man a father of the year, trying to call the man a dictator, trying to call the man a sexist because he said that my clothes don't appeal to women. Let's face it, Lane Bryant does not appeal to men, and you don't hear people criticizing Lane Bryant. Forever 21 appeals to women. You don't hear guys protesting outside of Forever 21 claiming that they should appeal to men. So if the man's clothes appeals to a certain segment of the population, I don't see the problem with that. Victoria's Secret, they appeal only to women. Now you might have some guys who a little bit on the tender side would like to shop at Victoria's Secret, but all straight men have no business going to Victoria's Secret unless you're buying something for your old lady. So again, that store is marketed and geared towards women, but yet you don't see men protesting outside saying, hey, what about us? So if that's how he chooses to market his product and to market his brand to men in the sporting world, I don't have a problem with that. Now, maybe he can look into kind of getting out of the shoe business and just focus on apparel, t-shirts, sweatshirts, windbreakers, tearaway pads, headbands, wristbands, compression shorts, basketball shorts, socks. If he wants to try to relaunch the brand in that, then I feel that maybe that's an option too. Maybe sneakers aren't your thing. I mean, the shoe company, Hanes itself, they make great socks and make great underwear and t-shirts, but they don't make shoes. So, and the same thing with Fruit of Balloon. So maybe he can go that other route, but he should never ever feel bad or feel guilty for trying to create a brand that's going to make him money long after he's gone and long after his children is gone. I never had a problem with that. And have you ever noticed that whenever the black man tried to do something for what's best for his family, now he gets demonized? For instance, Richard Williams, the father of Serena and Venus Williams. Yes, he pushes kids, but Serena is the greatest female tennis player who's ever lived, one of the greatest tennis players of all time, and Venus is clearly one of the top 10 women tennis players of all time. The most famous black father who pushes kids beyond the breaking point is Joe Jackson. Now, say what you want about Joe Jackson and the abuse and Latoya writing books and everything that happened, but at least the Jackson kids had $1 billion, if not almost $1 billion to blow. So, clearly he's doing something right with Michael's wealth and Janet's wealth and Latoya a little bit of wealth and the wealth of the Jackson 5. So clearly Joe must have done something right to push his kids in that direction where they have that amount of money to blow. So when it comes to the mainstream and it comes to the black father, there's always this interesting dynamic where you're not there or they don't want you to be there. For instance, Carolina's quarterback Cam Newton. Whatever controversy was sparked by his father trying to send Cam to a school, when Cam Newton won the Heisman Trophy when he was playing for Auburn, they told the man to stay away. That is the most asinine thing I've ever heard, to tell a man to stay away from an accomplishment or achievement of his son that, quite frankly, very few people have had, and you tell a man to stay away. You would never tell a white father to stay away. It'll never happen in a million years. So it just seems that in a black man in America, of course, the stereotype is and the stigma is that a black man doesn't support his family and a black man will run out on his family. And let's face it, there are some guys who do that. But for the ones who stick around, who are instrumental in their son's life, who wants the best for their sons and don't want to see their sons get taken advantage of, and if anything, to have their sons' talents exploited, now you become a demon. I find it funny, one sportscaster made a comment saying that Lavar Ball is riding the coattails of his son. And I felt that was the most asinine statement ever made, because if it wasn't for Lavar's force of personality, if it wasn't for Lavar's force of nature, if it wasn't for him bragging on his sons and constantly pushing his sons and exaggerating the claims about his sons, do you really think Lonzo Ball would have been drafted number 2 overall in the NBA draft? I highly doubt that. That was because of Lavar constantly speaking of his son. So to me, I think you need to give the man credit where credit is due about pushing the agenda for his son. And only because of Lavar Ball and only because of how he is the reason why we know his other 2 sons, because of Lavar Ball. Nobody knew anything about Lonzo Ball and the other Ball brothers until we got to know Lavar Ball and he started bragging about his children. So I commend Lavar Ball. I think he does the best that he can with the chips that he was handed and him trying to find a brand for his son. So this is my opinion on the Lavar Ball situation. And until the next time, this is Chin Check Sports Radio signing off.